Okay, so good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for making it out here. I know that everyone is super excited to get this underway. So my name is Karen Pack. I'm on the program team at the Global Ideas Institute. I've been on the team for about 3 years. I'll be moderating this room along with Alex Mottner, and I'll just explain sort of some housekeeping items as we start the day off. So as most of you know, you will have a total of 6 minutes. It will start with a 1-minute video that we have on the PowerPoint here. I'll just explain some logistical things about what's going to be happening in a minute. It'll start with a 1-minute video, and then it'll immediately go into your presentation, and there will be a slide in between each presentation so you'll know when your presentation has ended. Alex will be timekeeping, and so he'll have cards up at the front here to give you guys a notification of what are the interval times, like 1 minute?
1 minute and 30 seconds.
So you'll have a time card that says 1 minute left and then 30 seconds left. And then at the end of your 6 minutes, we will lovingly clap you off at the Oscars. So you'll know that the time is up. At that point, we will transition to the judges or the expert panelists, who will also have 6 minutes. And what we'll ask from the experts is maybe if you want to decide amongst the three of you how you want to sort of lead the Q&A, if you each want to take a turn just because it's a 6-minute time limit, or if maybe 2 people want to ask a question, but we leave it completely up to you, how you want to organize that time. 6 minutes for each presentation, so it could be 2 minutes each, or 2 people for 3 minutes, however you decide to leave that time. And then what we'll do is we'll invite the next school up, and we just ask that if you are the next school, so it'll be Malvern first and then Pickering, so Malvern will come up, and if Pickering at the same time could come up to the front, that way the transition time is a little bit smoother, and then we'll let you know who's coming up next, and each school that's next in line, if you could come to the front here, just so that, again, the transition time is a little bit quicker. So a few more housekeeping things. The washrooms are in the basement of the school, so if you do need to use a washroom, we just ask that you wait until there's a break. So we're going to have 2 presentations, and then we're actually going to have a 15-minute break, and then we'll have 2 more presentations before we go into lunch. A few last-minute things. The slideshow up here, we just ask that you don't exit the program. So when you're done, please don't exit PowerPoint, but just leave it. There's a clicker for you to click through the presentation, but for the video, you have to...
You just have to use the mouse and just click play on the actual video on the screen. It's very simple.
Are there any questions about that? No, so we're going to end here at 11:45, at which point we will transition over to CCF. We can lead you over there, as well as your mentors should know where Devonshire is. Once you get there, you're going to take a team photo before you grab your lunch, and then you'll get your lunch, and then you'll do your poster session, and then everybody needs to be back here for 1 o'clock sharp. Are there any questions?
And just for the sort of
are we on the card to talk?
No, absolutely.
You can just talk.
And for the team photos, everyone's going to be entering through the North House of Devonshire, so this could be for the mentors as well. Enter through the North House, for the North entrance in Devonshire, and the photo will be taken there, and then you can move down the hallway to the poster session and lunch.
At the end of your pitch, I will hand somebody on your team just a stack of the certificates for your participation in the GII. So I'll leave it to you to distribute to the people on your team. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our expert panelists for today who will be sitting up here at the front. First, we have Teresa Kramartz, who is the director of Monk One, a program for first-year undergraduate students at the Monk School of Global Affairs, and co-director of the Environmental Governance Lab alongside Matthew Hoffman and Stephen Bernstein. An expert on international organizations and global governance with emphasis on global environmental politics, her work has examined the impact of the World Bank's public-private partnerships on democracy, innovation, and financially sustainable conservation governance, the legitimacy of the World Bank as a global knowledge actor, and the local-global relationship in the provision of global public goods. So welcome, Teresa. Next, we have Ryan Noble, who is the Executive Director of North York Harvest Food Bank. Prior to accepting the executive director role, Ryan Noble served as a member of the NYHFB Strategic Planning Committee before joining the board. While on the board, he served as the vice chair, a member of the finance committee, and chair of the relocation committee. After completing his bachelor in commerce from Queen's University, Ryan focused his career on the aerospace industry, working to develop new business, growing and transforming Bombardier both locally and abroad. Noble believes in strong partnerships and has a commitment to growth through continuous systems evaluation and development. While completing his Master's of Education at the University of Toronto, Ryan was able to combine his business expertise and his passion for food security into the research and application of community-supported agriculture and alternative food systems. Thank you, Ryan, for being here. And finally, we have Adam Sheikh, who I think most of you will probably recognize as our last speaker from our session, who is a third-year student studying peace, conflict, and justice at the Monk School of Global Affairs. He is also the founder of Aegis, a nonprofit dedicated to protecting Gulf construction workers from the danger of heat strain. Adam has conducted research surrounding the supply of electricity in the Gaza Strip and on UNHCR cash transfers to Syrian refugees in Jordan. Adam's past work experience has largely been concentrated in the banking sector, having spent time at Abu Dhabi Commercial Bank, Bank Clearly, and TD Wealth in private investment. So if you would join me in welcoming our panelists, we're going to ask Adam to... And Pickering, if you guys can turn to front, you can stay there.
Hi, my name is Malik, and I'm from a region in India called Tamil Nadu, where I live on a small rural farm with my 3 children. Several months ago, my husband committed suicide, as thousands of farmers in rural communities like ours do. We are currently facing the worst drought in over 100 years, and our crops have suffered. There is no food to bring home to my undernourished children. The food our sickly crops provide us with is sold to market for next to nothing. The foreign fertilizers and pesticides that my husband bought took up all our money, with no profit. He was unable to pay his loans, and eventually these troubles drove him to take his own life. Life has become difficult for my children, and I have very little work, laboring to make around $2 a day, 3 or 4 days a week in order to feed my children and send them to school. I must also walk several kilometers each day to collect water from a near empty village well. My community and I are hungry, demoralized, and in debt, and yet our corrupt government has done nothing but ignore us. If only there was something in my community that would support local farmers and their wives, educate them on how to adapt to this changing environment, and sustain them during this time of crisis. Something that would ensure a safe and healthy future for myself and my children. Something that would bring life back to my region. Introducing UDA's Pavilion Program, Building Centers and Sustaining Lives.
In a city like Toronto, where access to water is a turn of a tap, and for many, food is a walk to a fridge, a story like that of Meadows may seem unimaginable. However, her struggle with food security is one experienced by millions of people across the world, particularly in India.
We are the Melbourne GII team, and our organization, UTS, aims to build community centers that will improve lives. Driven by 3 key values: education, sustainability, and community, UTS aims to make a positive, lasting difference for people in Toronto.
Based on our interview with the leader of the Green Revolution, Emma Swaminathan, we decided to focus on Tamil Nadu, a southern state in India where the worst drought in over 140 years has led to a vast depletion of crops. For farmers and their families, this means both food insecurity and financial insecurity. This crisis, in combination with the lack of governmental support, has led to civil unrest and over 5,000 farmer suicides in the past 5 years. Tamil Nadu needs to bring power back to its people.
This is where UTS Pavilion Project comes in. A community hub, market space, and education center built with sustainable features to help support the agricultural process. We will build capacity in rural communities in Tamil Nadu by providing education, infrastructure, and tools to help farmers support and sustain themselves, their families, and their communities. Our pavilion will provide rural communities with the means needed to achieve and maintain food security in times of crisis. They will bring back a sense of self-worth for farmers by giving them more control over their own food security. Our pavilions are a feasible solution as they are scalable, culturally relevant, and will provide lasting benefits. The UDA Pavilion program intends to innovate through a wholesale market, with sustainable system for farmers, employment opportunities to empower women, and access to healthy, affordable, and traditional food. Finally, we will offer a neutral space for all that will benefit each community.
We've identified 4 key phases in order to accomplish the project. There's partnership, outreach, implementation, and continuation. Before we can break ground on the Pavilion project, we need to make valuable connections with NGOs, both at the local and international level. This will aid with initial funding, experts, and resources needed to bring the project to life.
Next, we will engage with community farmers, women, and student volunteers, explaining the many opportunities the UDA Pavilion project provides, while ensuring the pavilions meet the community's needs. Farmers will be incentivized to sell at the market where they keep all but 5% of their daily earnings, rather than being heavily underpaid by large corporations for a flat fee. Women, specifically widows of farmers, will be approached to manage the pavilion. They will work in short shifts where their wages will be covered by the farmer's commission. By doing so, we intend to financially equip these women while minimizing the stigma around career women and widows in India. Finally, students from local universities will be given the opportunity to gain valuable experience by volunteering at the pavilion in their areas of interest or study.
The third stage of UDA's Pavilion program is implementation. This is a 6-month process that will consist of 3 phases: construction, advertising, and training. During construction, UDA's message will be spread through digital and physical mediums as well as through word of mouth. And women in the community who want to participate in part-time work will be trained in finance and management skills, which are skills that can be transferred onto future jobs as well as to other women in the community.
The structure will consist of a steel frame, a heat-resistant concrete roof, and concrete flooring. Concrete costs approximately 67 Canadian dollars per cubic meter, and steel costs approximately 93 cents per kilogram. The building will also include a large underground space for temporary food storage. Excess or spoiled food from UDA's market will be placed in the composting system, made from a fine mesh, to be used as organic fertilizer repurposing the buildings. Placement of the pavilion next to the community well will act as a nudge, as the co-location of the well and the pavilion will encourage those already making the journey for water to use UDA's resources. And construction will be carried out by a professional team aided by volunteers and supervised by engineers, all provided by the participating NGO.
After the implementation phase, we believe that the Pavilion project will continue to sustain itself, empower female farmers, provide relevant education, promote sustainable and local agriculture, and foster deeper community connections through a shared space. In doing so, UDA will help to sustain lives of farmers and their families and strengthen communities for generations to come.
For the judges, if you want to pose your questions to the group, and then if you girls want to answer for me, you have 6 minutes. I think I'll have some time as well. Can you guys hear in the back, or do they need to use a microphone?
Thank you very much. That was great, and congratulations for being first. It's always hard. I really liked that you made the problem more complex, right? So that you really introduced us to the multi-dimensional layers of the issue. I wrote some ideas for you to think about as you know, pitches are always a work in progress, right? So it's not the first or the last time you pitch, it's just going to continue. But some of the things that were coming to mind was for you to make more explicit what is the capacity for implementation. So what are the NGOs and what is their ability to actually take this on? Because it has so many has a lot of boots on the ground sort of requirements. So perhaps afterwards you can address that. And then other comments that I just thought might be helpful for next pitch. Congratulations.
Yeah, really well done. I really liked how you considered, especially the idea of like nudging as well. That was a really good. I was wondering a little bit about, you mentioned digital mediums as kind of a way for attracting people to this and spreading awareness about what this is. And also you mentioned something about university students. And I was wondering a bit about how you want to attract those students and also sort of how you want to attract the community at large with kind of digital sort of thing. But, I mean, if they're walking hours and hours to get water, I don't know if they have access to digital sort of mediums.
So while we were researching Colorado, we looked at two different trends. So one is that right now, the issue of farmer suicides and drought is something that's like happening right now. There are a lot of students who are showing their voices and like stepping out and trying to create change there. And so we thought that it would be interesting to harness their energy and give them this space where they can come and work and kind of, use it as their platform to create change in their communities. Also, one thing that we noticed was that there's many universities in Tamil Nadu that focus on agricultural practice, like engineering, that focus on civil engineering. But the problem is that these undergrads they come out of university, but they don't get jobs. And most of it is because they don't have the experience that maybe that we have in Canada, where we have co-op programs where we can apply our knowledge and kind of take what we learn in school and then apply it outside, but they don't have that there. So we would approach universities and tell them that this could be some kind of a research project for them to bring in students who are specialized in agriculture and engineering to really make the pavilion project something that's next level.
Thank you all, and congratulations on going first as well. One of the questions that I would just be curious to hear more about either now or in future pitches. You mentioned government corruption as one of the key root causes. And did you explore any of the connection between your implementation, specifically with NGOs and community engagement, and any barriers that government or lack of government supporting governments with?
In our research, we found a lot of NGOs that are actually, it seems like the issue with the government being corrupt, they don't really, to the issue of the farmers, they're not addressing the issue that's happening with the drought and how the farmers and their families are being affected. So it seems that they don't really, they sort of let the NGOs take away. And there are a lot of organizations that focus on educating women, which is what we're trying to do, and bringing information and education on how they can better themselves with using resources that are available.
I was also wondering about, obviously, like big companies like Monsanto are playing a large role in all of this. So I was wondering, just kind of going off of that last question, what barriers do you think the private sector or other kind of foreign corporations that are involved with the seed sale and the fertilizer sale and whatnot, what barriers do you think that they could help us?
Well, in our research, we found that there wouldn't be a way to come up with a solution immediately that would completely provide them with financial security and their food security. So what we want to do with the Pavilion is provide the farmers with space to bring a small amount of their organic, locally grown foods so they can make the most of that financially. So this will hopefully help them get over that edge, get out of extreme poverty just a little bit. It's very hard to escape that debt that they are now very deeply in because of all the money they are spending on fertilizers and pesticides to grow these crops that these very large corporations want. So we want to help them by providing them that little step forward.
Follow on that really quick. You were talking about how they are giving specialized fertilizers and it's becoming their crops. Yeah. So we want to, with our education, we want to focus on teaching them about going back to traditional foods because the new foods that they are growing, the new seeds that they are growing are taking a lot more water that they don't have. And so we want to teach them how we can bring back the traditional foods and how we can try to eradicate the use of these specialized fertilizers.
I was just wondering if you thought that these companies would have any kind of create any barriers or what you thought these being considered there.
I think that they definitely would. That is something that we don't really know how to answer. they do have so much power in the community that is kind of a barrier we're going to gain, I guess.
And also like the whole organization itself, we want to step away from like the government, and it's really like giving and taking ownership of the pavilion. Like we want the community to take ownership really and create change. So,
Four million people in Canada experience food insecurity.
62% of children living in the North are food insecure.
35 is the percentage of graduates from the region of Nunavut.
15,000, the cost that people in Nunavut spend on food annually.
36 million, that's the amount of people living in Canada who should be food secure.
We have come up with an education-based solution that tackles the problem of food insecurity in Nunavut. We've called the solution Anangik. Anangik means to take flight in the Inuktitut language.
Anangik will be a curriculum that focuses on culture, religion, and nutrition in terms of a traditional Inuit diet. The curriculum will be including cultural lessons that will reintegrate traditional Inuit culture. This culture has slowly faded away over the years due to residential schools and ongoing assimilation. We are Pickering High, and together let's take flight. 4 million people in Canada experience food insecurity.
Good morning, everyone. We are Pickering High School. My name is Nisha.
I'm Hannah. I'm Tanir. I'm Morgan.
And I'm Layla. And for the past couple of months, our team has been trying to come up with a feasible and effective solution that will help decrease the food insecurity issue in Kansas.
With food insecurity affecting approximately 4 million people nationwide, Canada is facing a social welfare issue each day. This number accounts for approximately 12% of our population with inadequate and insecure access to food. This number quickly jumps to 46.8% when we direct our focus to Nunavut alone. Families are unable to access food, necessary food sources, which create lifelong nutrient deficiencies. These deficiencies put an immense strain on our healthcare system each year. This issue is even more prevalent in northern Canada, as traditional diets require food sources that contain nutrients that are currently unattainable with current subsidy programs.
Inuit people have been feeding themselves through traditional meats for hundreds of years before they were introduced to our southern ways of how we approach food security. Traditional Inuit culture namely uses the hunter-gatherer method, a stark contrast to how we as Torontonians get our food. Of course, what works for us here does not work in these communities. In fact, there's not much vegetation in the north. The bulk of the Inuit diet is made up of traditional meats, which are comprised of proteins and lipids. Genetically, the Inuit have larger livers to help with gluconeogenesis, which is the process of turning protein into glucose, an important function the body uses to make energy. With this information, we chose to focus on the traditional aspects of the culture when creating our solution.
Ultimately, the significance of hunting comes from the tradition and its ability to provide food for the community. Its importance was reiterated to us after we interviewed a professional educator who taught on a reserve. He explained that hunters played a crucial role in feeding the communities because the food that they hunted would be distributed amongst everyone at community feasts. Unfortunately, there are generational gaps in the traditional ecological knowledge that is required for people to go hunting and prepare, and the different preparation techniques required for specific needs. So these gaps ultimately put restrictions on the availability of food through this system. From this, we concluded that by reintroducing this traditional knowledge to youth and encouraging more people to follow this traditional way, we could address the insecurity in Montana.
So after thorough research and an in-depth analysis, our team at Pickering High has decided to establish a school-based program that will reintegrate Inuit culture alongside a new school curriculum.
So our solution is called Anangi, and it's an educational program that will be integrating traditional ecological knowledge, while at the same time simultaneously will helping get rid of food insecurity in Nunavut. So through this program, children will learn to hunt using both traditional and modern methods. So after hunting, children will learn to use traditional tools such as an ulu knife and seal oil to make sure that the meat is preserved and that it doesn't go bad. In addition, children will only be hunting animals that they familiarize themselves with because we took safety in as a precaution, and they will be land animals only, such as muskox, prairie caribou, ground squirrel, and ptarmigan. In addition, cooking classes will take place that the students will be learning how to make country food. Country food is traditional Inuit food. And elders in the community will take a leadership role within the classroom by helping kids in Anangi create a bond with the food that they're making, and hopefully a bond at home with the skills that they've learned at school.
Concerning political feasibility, Canada's government is currently aiming to abolish the 1876 Indian Act while trying to make amends with the Indigenous people of Canada. As of currently, the government allows Indigenous people to hunt with a free license, supporting current hunting efforts. Nutrition North Canada, a subsidy program that provides isolated communities in Nunavut, will be funding this project as they currently have a budget of $80 million towards support projects. Indigenous communities have already established a hunting and food sharing program. Anangi will build on what these countries have already started. We aim to start off small, launching our education program at the Lejeune Elementary School within the Kikitani School operations. We aim to expand throughout Nunavut with government aid in the future.
Overall, we believe that our pilot project will be of great benefit to Northern Canada. Our proposition to reteach the Inuit culture through traditional practices and an educational program will tackle the issue of food insecurity in Canada's north. We are Pickering High, and together let's take flight.
Congratulations once again. Often the northern food security or insecurity challenge is met with logistical solutions, how to ship food in, that type of thing. So I can congratulate you on taking a cultural approach and looking at a local community solution. I'd also, another piece of feedback, I think it's a great idea to start with the pilot the way you described that, in a small, seeing the solution that would give you the highest chance of success. Congratulations.
Congratulations. It's really good to see that you not only were not trying to go the logistics for it. I mean, the reality is that you don't have the experience technology to navigate that properly. And you found something just as interesting that, and you're also remembering that problem as well. Is this on? Can you hear me? Yeah. While doing that, so I think that's really, really great. And I really like how you considered sort of feasibility and again, the pilot project idea, instead of trying to go for something big, we want to start with something small, which I hope is to identify the problems that you would try to scale up, and you would identify kind of funds possibly from any $1 million budget, which is great. And you also want to consult with elders in the community, so that's also really, really good.
Okay, great. I really liked that you were very explicit about the problem. You named it, put it out there. It was very, okay, I had no confusion. And I won't repeat what my colleagues have said. I think it's great that you're focused and that you're starting small. And I would ask you, though, to think about, if you hate to like sound like a broken record on this, but think about implementation next, right? So who's doing the designing of the curriculum? Who are you going to have? Because in the design lies a lot of it's not a detail, right? I mean, what you might be replicating a really bad practice from the past, or you might be actually breaking new ground. So what are the kinds of connections that you want people, teachers, curriculum developers, up and beyond the administrators in primary school that teach us? And to think really critically, because education is a really long tail, as we know. So be really in learning mode. When you reach out to say, okay, what are the kinds of things, and who are the kinds of people who should be sitting at the table? Just think broad. The design stage of any project is the most, is where most of the power lies, right? It's not in the implementation, the technocratic part of it. It's really in deciding, who for what, the expense of who, quota winners, who is this, and who gets to say. So just think about it when you're in the next stage, right? As you're focusing on curriculum. Congratulations.
So we have 3 minutes of Q&A, but if you want to ask
I have yeah, Professor Carr is completely right in saying you need to really focus on design. And I would just and again, this is my hope for you and my hope for everyone here is that you're able to do this. I'm really trying to carry this forward. And so I recommend doing that. Make sure you consult with stakeholders. You obviously are doing a pilot, so you can assess what the student's reaction is, and out of that you can alter what the program is, but don't start there. Make sure you start here. Make sure you start consulting Indigenous groups to figure out what is the thing supposed to be, and the government that ultimately I think is the one who we want funding this with that $8 million fund, and that's going to be a negotiation there. So you guys need to figure out what it is that this should be in.
Yeah, first nutrition north, because they were going to be having the
Okay.
And then after that, our goal would be to have it implemented products or territory-wide. So that's why we were thinking of having the creation of the curriculum through the current, every territory would have their own curriculum. So it would be the people who currently created, and then whoever the educated professionals, sort of the elders in the community that would be partnered with, to allow that input so that it's being made for both sides of it, as opposed to continuing to just be on curriculum based because really that is changing. You want to add is also was part of that at that table.
Is there time? And when you think about implementation, also think about what you're asking teachers to take on, right? I worked on this project where we're going to drop a laptop in all these African villages, and this is going to revolutionize learning. You'll think like, oh my God, the poor teachers have enough going on. And now you're going to drop this on them to help them and help the students, and think about teacher training and think about how the kind of the added weight and burden that you add on. And this is not to say this shouldn't be done, but how do you actually make this not an added burden on the teachers who have a lot going on as well? How do you integrate this in a way that's that's as simple and that takes advantage of things that are already happening, that the teacher's already doing, and just has an added component, but in ways that doesn't create extra work for people who already have so much on the plate, right?
Thank you so much.
That's a bad pun.
Not another one.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. We are. So we are actually going to take a quick break. So if you need to go to the washroom, I would suggest now is the time to go in the basement. There's refreshments in the back, and we're going to start again here at 11 o'clock sharp. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to get started again shortly. Just a few reminders of things. Havergal will be next, and then if we can have St. Clements move to the front, that would be great. Mentors, if you need a evaluation form, please let us know and we can pass that back over to you. So Havergal, if you want to come on up, we will get the second half.
You have the sheet that I gave to you. That was a picture.
Good morning, everybody. We're the Haverhill College GII team. My name's Carolyn.
I'm Anishri. I'm Gerald. I'm Rachel. And I'm Cynthia.
Founded in 1999, Nunavut is the largest and least populated province or territory in Canada, covering over 2 million square kilometers with only 33,000 inhabitants. For our project, we decided to focus on food insecurity in Nunavut, specifically the Kivalliq region. We chose this because aside from the capital, Iqaluit, the region is home to the next 2 most populous communities in the territory, and we thought it would be a good place to kickstart the project. Due to its distance from southern Canada, its sparsely populated land, and widespread communities, nutritious, affordable food is difficult to source.
So our solution is to implement indoor farming instead of existing infrastructure such as high schools and community centers in Arvia and Rankin Inlet. Indoor farming will consist of growing vegetables and keeping chicken cubes for eggs. To grow the vegetables, we want to use a hydroponic and vertical farming system. Hydroponics means growing plants using just water, so we won't have to deal with the transportation of soil, as transportation costs were something we wanted to completely cut out. Vertical farming, as you can see in the bottom picture, takes up less room in classrooms, as that's an example of one actually in a classroom already, and so it'll be less disruptive and easier to use in already existing buildings. And having the farms in schools and community centers will also create a sense of community and provides opportunities for education and agriculture. We want to keep this project running. We want it to run as a business.
For this project, we want to involve both territorial and federal governments for funding, the Nunavut Department of Education to incorporate the project into some classes, for example, science classes to learn about agriculture, select NGOs that are already involved in northern food insecurity, and most importantly, community members, because they are what will keep the project running. And we want to see the community involved in all of the conservation, management, planting, and harvesting portions.
In the past, initiatives to create greenhouses have cost up to $150,000. We're looking to create a less expensive solution by using existing buildings as the infrastructure, so we won't have to have the cost of actually constructing the greenhouse. Our cost will consist of the hydroponics equipment, plants and seeds, chickens, chicken cubes, and of course, the cost of energy and renewable energy sources. We plan to get funding from the federal and territorial governments as well as NGOs and by fundraising through crowdfunding. As we mentioned before, we want to run the business, we want to run the indoor farm like a business. So we would pick a small team of somewhat educated people from the community to be trained and run the indoor farm as their own business. So this would be somewhat similar to the concept of a microloan. So we give them capital, which in this case is the equipment for the farming rather than like actual money, and they start the business and run it, and they'll be able to sell the food produce for a small profit, which creates jobs for them, as well as it's still cheaper than the costs that are currently in grocery stores as there's no transportation.
In calculating the feasibility of our proposed solution, we made some assumptions which I will go through. First, that the community will use the indoor farms and the residents will take the initiative to run the farm. Our project relies solely on local members, and if they're not involved with the solution, it is neither sustainable nor will have any effect. On the note of sustainability, we're assuming that our hydroponic approach is sustainable for resources that can be obtained in the north while lowering food costs. To do so, this means that the approach will be cheaper than transporting materials to and from the south. Finally, although hydroponics need less resources than traditional farming, they still require water and energy to work. We're assuming that there's an adequate water and electricity supply for us to use.
So the way we came to our solution is that we actually saw something similar to cooking, which is that in an elementary school in Iqaluit, they have small indoor gardens where the kids grow their own fruits and vegetables, and we wanted to just bring this onto a larger scale and have it be able to feed more the wider community rather than just a few people in the school. We also think that our business model will work because we've seen that microloans and similar ideas are effective in many circumstances. Lastly, we think that we could get government funding because of recent federal focus on Indigenous populations.
That brings us to the end of our presentation. To summarize, our proposed solution is to integrate indoor farms and chicken coops into existing infrastructure in northern communities, to such as schools and community halls. This is built upon involving the community in every step of the process, whether it is maintaining the farm, allowing school classes to use it as a learning resource, or harvesting. Thank you so much for listening. We'll now open it up for questions.
So, you know, it's really nice that you're thinking about all the right things, right? So I really liked that you told us this is where we're focusing and this is why. So you offered justification for your key selection. So bravo, that's wonderful. I like that you're thinking about sustainability. I really like that you went over your assumptions. These are critical because they can derail your project. So wonderful that you're thinking about it. And I love that you summarized the project together for us at the end, because there's a little cognitive bandwidth that we all enjoy, and then, you know, even though you're only third to present, it's always good at the end of the pitch to say, this is what I just told you, right? So great, great, great. There's some things that were a bit confusing to me. So, for example, if this is a business, and good that you're thinking about, okay, how does this go on? How does this sustain itself? It's not clear why students in high school, are they? Or any student should be working for free for a group of business owners to turn a profit on this. So I'm not too sure what the business model is and what is the labor that students are, like if this is an educational venture, how is the money going to be distributed to the people who are actually doing the work in order to maintain the, you know, in order to grow the goods that are going to be sold? You know, it needs a business plan. I'll pass it on to my colleagues, but I think that you're asking all the right questions. You just need to push yourself a little bit further on what are they really assuming, right? And what is critical about this, and how do I mitigate those risks? Linda.
Although of course, extent there's been some sort of sound-related issues and people being able to hear. Again, I really liked the format of things. I really liked that you had a slide that was dedicated to sort of the rationale and the assumptions, and you know, having the assumption slide is great, but having the rationale for it after is what makes it all sort of come together. Building off of what Professor Kumar said, I think there's a lot that needs to be considered in terms of the design when it comes to, you know, how profitable do we expect this sort of thing to be? Is there enough to attract a business? And if it's to sufficient scale, then again, are the students going to be paid or compensated in some sort of way, whether it be with what they're producing or whatnot? And then also, I was just kind of wondering a little bit more specifically, because I think there is value to asking sort of specific questions on this, is space something that seems to be in excess? Because I think that's at the core of all of this. Do high schools really have, you know, sufficient excess capacity in middle schools and whatnot?
I think what we were hoping was we looked into like different methods of indoor farming, and we came to the conclusions of the hydroponics and the vertical farming because space definitely is an issue just in any school, and we want to make sure that we're using space in like a building that already exists and is being used day to day. We're using it in the most efficient way possible, and this is hopefully going to be like sort of the most bang for your buck space-wise. But obviously it has to be on a school-by-school basis. Some schools have more rooms, some schools have less. So if there is a community, and that's where we're going to look to people in the community to actually say, like, this is where we have room for this and this is where we don't. And if it happens that in a school there is no room, we would look towards like a community center or another building that is already in existence, because that obviously is what they mentioned, we're looking to cut down costs and hopefully try to find space somewhere else. We're not like wedded to the idea of a school, we just thought it would be a good jumping off point.
We also, I think we probably weren't doing it because we didn't actually mean that the students in the school would be working at the farm thing. It was more just like we wanted to give like young people who maybe were done their education and like looking for a job, that job as like running it as a business, and like it being in the school is kind of just a side like benefit to maybe like if students want to come in and learn a bit about it. Like it's not like they're working in there, it's kind of just like they're being educated just because it's there in your school, but it's not exactly, that's not really the main point.
I think one big thing to consider is that you have sort of outsiders that are sort of coming into the school. I mean, there's clearly that benefit when it comes to students are able to integrate with the green space and whatnot, and that may attract provincial government in terms of support or what have you. And then I guess there is an added benefit for someone else who's trying to find work, but I urge you to consider complications with that as well to bring in people as well.
And at the risk of repeating my colleagues are building on the problem, I would stress again the business plan development, but underpinning that is really what's the sustainability for the operation. There's no shortage of projects where there was a large capital investment, but then the operating and the sustainability of that, particularly in the community agriculture space, is where these projects often fall down. So I would build on the comments that were made previously and encourage you to really dig a little bit deeper on that and get clear on that piece of it, because that'll be one key area of risk. Great presentation.
Okay, so our final group for this morning will be St. Clements, and then we will be, I'll have just a couple of notes at the end, and then we'll break for lunch.
Good morning, everyone. We're from St. Clements School. My name is Jairu. My name is Megan.
My name is Charlotte. My name is Lucy.
And I'm Zora. And our 6-member of our team, Taylor Reed, could not be here with us today.
To begin our pitch video.
Did you know that 40% of post-secondary students will experience food insecurity in the course of their education?
It is for this reason that we have chosen to focus on food insecurity in post-secondary institutions in the GTA.
The transition between living at home and living independently, often for the first time, leaves students in a vulnerable position where they're more susceptible to food insecurity.
As high school students, we are quickly approaching this stage in life,
And we want to ensure that all of our peers have access to safe, healthy food.
Our solution focuses on providing long-term food security and a community setting for students so that they can prepare nutritious food that they can for themselves.
Now ask yourself, if you had to choose between paying for food, rent, or education, which would you pick? Our group believes that you should have to.
Did you know?
A study of 5 Canadian university campuses by meal exchange revealed that 40% of university students reported experiencing food insecurity. Our group recognizes that attending post-secondary education brings many new responsibilities to most students. As we approach this shift ourselves, we want to ensure that all of our peers and colleagues are protected from food insecurity as they enter college and university and are opened up to this discussion about this context.
Our solution targets the Greater Toronto Area and focuses on these 4 campuses. On each campus, food insecurity has been recognized to varying degrees. However, it often carries a stigma, which can be a barrier for students to access assistance.
Our solution considers both the student and institutional perspective on post-secondary food insecurity. As discussed by Valerie Tarasuk in our 4th GII session, inadequate income is the fundamental cause of food insecurity, and this is no different for students. High tuition and living costs, along with the precarious labor market in our city, has increased the burden on students, so much so that 39.5% of respondents to the meal exchange survey reported that they had to sacrifice buying healthy food in order to access essential expenses. Responding to the same survey, 47% of food insecure students reported that their physical or mental health was affected by food insecurity. Not only is this an added barrier to students pursuing their degree, but universities also see a decline in their students' productivity.
Considering this information, our team has developed a solution. We propose a program where all students can attend weekly cooking sessions. The main purpose is for students to prepare meals together, otherwise known as meal prepping. These sessions will be hosted at the institution's kitchen or a nearby community center. The implications of this program are threefold. Firstly, by making the program student-driven, we hope to help students increase their food literacy in the long term. Secondly, while our program aims to help students who are food insecure, it does not require students to prove their food insecurity. By doing so, we have developed destigmatized initiatives intended to help students with food insecurity and increase dialogue about students' experiences. Finally, our partnership with local suppliers will allow the ingredients and thus the cooking sessions to be at a reduced price, making it affordable for students. Now, a closer look at the specifics.
As a program, we want to ensure that the food we are providing is safe, healthy, and affordable. Thus, we've chosen 2 possible food suppliers. The first supplier will be Second Harvest Food Rescue and Delivery Program. Running daily, this program rescues fresh food from all parts of the food supply chain. All the food, mainly perishable goods, will be donated. This program helps us to decrease food insecurity by reducing food waste and delivering food to this organization. Our second option for a supplier would be FoodShare's bulk produce program for schools and community groups, which also allows us to meet our commitment to food that is safe, healthy, as well as culturally inclusive. Based on calculations from the Government of Canada shown here, our average cost for 5 pounds of food per student that they can take home, or 1 meal a day, is $1,700 for ingredients for 100 students.
The overall goal of our program is to provide accessible, healthy food to all students. The weekly student admission will be about $18 for average meal prices. This is approximately $3 per meal and can be paid out through the student's meal plan or in cash if the student has a meal plan. Students will still pay upon entry, and we will utilize a pay-forward system from then on, where the student's payment from the previous session will fund the next.
Given our program's level of integration into the Institute's pre-existing meal plan system and clubs, it is scalable from our local campuses to the provincial and eventually national level. The timeline for the scaling process is shown here. In the end of the first year and the beginning of the second, the program would be recognized by the institution's student union. The second year would be used to run trials on our focus campuses, collecting data on program engagement and success. If the results are positive, the third year will see expansion of the program across the province, and then we would look to the national level. Although we do recognize that our program has certain limitations, we do believe that it has potential because it aims to tackle the stigma surrounding food insecurity, as well as the challenges of healthy eating for students. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our presentation. We hope that with this program, no student will have to choose between their education and their next meal.
We would now like to open the floor for questions.
Okay, so you know? Okay, so you're the first group to talk about collecting data to evaluate whether you're being successful, and I think that's brilliant, and I would encourage everybody to ask themselves, how would I know if I'm succeeding during project implementation before I start project implementation? So great that you're thinking about this and that you, the way that you positioned this was sort of like adaptive management, right? Okay, so given what I learn, how am I going to shift implementation? So that's wonderful. I think this is a good idea. The thing that I would encourage you to do is to look deeper. And I like that you're you're not undergraduate students yet, but you're sort of working in the space that is close to you. And I always think that that's a really good thing to do because that's where you know most, right? So that's great. I would just encourage you to go into these different universities because they're actually like anthropology of food programs that have established food, that have established kitchens. For example, University of Toronto Scarborough. There are kitchens where students take classes. And so some of this is going on. So what is the added value? What is the thing that you piggyback off of this in order to meet some of the things that you want to meet some of the goals that you want to meet? Be very clear on the goal, right? Is it food literacy? Is it finance? Are you trying to get people to have healthy foods more often? Because there are very many components to food security, as you know. So what is the thing that matters most? Not because it negates that other things don't matter, but because you need a point of entry and you need to focus on, okay, this is the thing that I can really make a difference on. But start by looking at what's already existing in these institutions and seeing if you can just add a component to what's already going on and taking advantage of the infrastructure.
Congratulations, once again. Great topic. Just to throw a little bit of insight out, in the North York Harvest Food Bank Network, the food bank at York University is one of our most visited, the most services that are most used by the community that serves. So certainly an important topic to tackle. I also really appreciated the fact that you personalized it and made that connection to you as a team that are approaching that age. You identified income as being one of the key drivers of food insecurity, and we would agree with that 100%. What I encourage you to make the linkage a little bit clearer, and I guess building a little bit on what was previously said about focusing on what your specific goal is. If income is the key driver, then how do you connect that to food literacy, to the community building aspects that I looked at? So something just to think about there. And I would also encourage you to seek out programs that are already in place. So I mentioned the food bank at York University. That is part of the student union there, the student government there, and is now being funded by students. So that could provide some subsidization to address that income issue as well. So some things to think about. Great job.
Again, really, really great job. I really like how you had phased down sort of plan for implementation, and as Professor Kumar said, really good to see that you integrated some sort of, you noted that you wanted to take feedback and make adjustments to the program based on the first sort of phase of all that. The biggest thing to me I really liked about it was this sort of stigma that community were able to address with all of this, because certainly there are programs that allow people to get, including campuses at the UTSU here at UT has something that's running, and they're trying to launch something else with Goodreach as well right now, because I'm doing a little bit of work with them. And but I really like the idea of kitchen, because you don't look around, you don't know who's there for what purpose. Is it a pleasurable activity? Is it because they actually need it, and does it seem critically how those conversations start flowing? Yeah, it's really good.
So what does your funding model look like?
So the way that we're working with our funding is, as we mentioned in our presentation, all of our funding comes from the students. So the way that the $18 price essentially counts for all of the food, plus a little bit of extra, depending on if we need to get containers from the students, if we need to cover any additional expenses, we want to have all of that covered. We have also considered the limitations of our program in terms of supplies, and depending on the kitchen that we're working in, some university kitchens might not want to lend out all of their supplies. So one thing that we discussed at length as a group would be partnering with local organizations. So whether that be a nonprofit that deals with food insecurity, they're one in Toronto, whether it be a corporate organization like a grocery company or something similar, talking to them and them being able to associate their brand with our program, and in exchange us having the funding that we need to get started, as well as any materials that we would need to purchase. So that would be our funding model. Primarily student driven, so it's more feasible for the university, but also working with different organizations in partnership.
And if I may just jump onto that, the students can either pay through cash, and this would be about 5 to 6 meals per week be prepping, or we hope to also partner with the university so that if students are on a meal plan, they can use a portion of their meal plan to pay for our program, so that they can, like if they plan ahead of time to participate in this program, they could purchase a lower meal plan, or just kind of get more bang for their buck.
Well, I just wanted to ask you something. I understand that the focus on university because it's the first time students are on their own, they're cooking on their own, they're budgeting on their own, all this. But did you look into what
I think that we definitely discussed our when we were brainstorming. Our original idea was elementary schools, and so
So we can give St. Clements a round of applause. So we are going to now move towards our lunch session. So as we mentioned before, what will happen is we're going to make our way over to 1 Devonshire Place, CCF. There's the north side of the building, the cloisters, and then the section where lunch will be. When you head over, if you can just stay near the north end, have your photo taken with your team, and then make your way over to pick up lunch, and then head over to your posters. We will reconvene back here at 1:10 actually, so if you can make your way back, and we will start sharply at 1:15. You can leave items here, the doors will be locked, and then we'll make sure that the doors open by around 1:05. Okay, enjoy your lunch. Thank you.
Although I didn't think we
Hi everyone, welcome back. Good afternoon. I hope you guys had a really great lunch and that everyone got their fill and that there was no food waste. All right. So we just want to make sure everyone's here again. So we'll start with the afternoon schools to make sure, since you're pitching. So Mark Arnault, perfect, and North Toronto, North Park, perfect, and Northern, great. Okay, and then Malvern, here, perfect, and Pickering, great, and Havergal, and St. Thomas, great, awesome. So we will start with the afternoon pitches. Just before we get started with